Hello, beautiful MILFs, and welcome back to another episode of the MILFs Who Pivot podcast, where the term MILF is short for Money Making Independent Lady Friends. I'm your host, Bianca Terry, and each week I'll either be interviewing or reading about amazing women who have pivoted in life to pursue their wildest dreams and wealth from a MILF's perspective. This podcast aims to motivate and encourage other MILFs to boldly explore uncharted paths towards a fresh and fabulous leveled up life. Hello, everybody. Today in the guest chair, I have Kissonda Williams. Kissonda is a native of Detroit, Michigan, a mother of 3 beautiful heartbeats, veteran educator of 21 years, and a budding entrepreneur. Currently in the process of setting a new educational coaching business to support new middle school math teachers. She is also a woman dedicated to sharing her unbelievable story of resilience with the goal to inspire, empower, and encourage over 40-something-year-old women to embrace change, pursue personal growth, and believe in their ability to rebuild their lives, even in the face of life's toughest challenge. Making a pivot out of your comfort zone and moving to live your best life after finally acting on knowing that enough is finally enough. I love that. Kissonda, welcome to the show. So happy to meet you.
Thank you, Bianca. Same here.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. We have a lot to cover. Your story was very interesting to me and touched home in a few ways.
Mhm.
So, first, I'd like to start by asking you about the life before your pivot, before this major pivot that you went through, and then we'll move up to what that was about.
Okay. So again, my name is Kissonda Williams. You never meet another Kissonda. Plenty of Williams, but not a Kissonda. Um, and I think leading before the transitions and what have you, just day to day teacher. Go to work, love what I do, love working with the kids, working with my colleagues, supporting new teachers. Always worked kind of while I was officially a teacher. I worked in a lot of quasi administrative roles, so I was gaining a lot of administrative experience kind of unofficially, mother, daughter, all the things that go along with that. Definitely settling into motherhood over the years. And so coming home and realizing that my time was not just for me. Uh, and so adjusting
Right.
to what all that means. And so I guess after a while you just hit the repeat, the rinse and recycle on what their life is. And as the kids get older, they get involved in more. And so now your life shifts to supporting them in their growing and activities and things like, and then trying to maintain like a personal relationship, with their dad. So yeah, I mean, like really in a nutshell, like that was it for a really long time. Was just
Hmm.
the
You had a
ins and
busy
outs.
schedule, a full schedule, a lot going on. I know what it's like to be a mom. Yeah. Well, then
Absolutely.
let's talk about your pivot. What inspired your big change?
A few things. One was just coming to that point of feeling like, particularly in my professional life, that I was ready for something different. I had been in the classroom
Mm.
for like 21 years. And while that time was great, I always promised myself that if I felt like I needed to make a move, then I would have to make myself make the move. Because it's unfair to the kids and to anyone else for me to be there, like just for the sake of being there. And I didn't want to wait
Hmm.
until I felt like that's what I needed to do. And so just like having to start thinking about, okay, so what does that mean? Like, so what do you want to do? And how do you pursue that? And so the easier routes, the more obvious ones are like, go into coaching, go become an assistant principal. And I had already been coaching and mentoring and all these things. And so I did get excuse me, an assistant principal position that I didn't even apply for in terms of like finding out about it and all those types of things. Like I wasn't seeking it out. It was from a friend who had a
Mm.
position. I would drive past her school every day, didn't know she worked there, didn't know she was the principal, saw her on the street corner helping her kids dismiss. And I'm like, she looks familiar. I yell out her name. She's like, pull over. I pull over. We start talking. She's like, listen, I need this and that in my school. I need an assistant principal. She's like, call me up. I'm going to send you the link. Apply. I did it. I got the position.
Oh, wow.
You
Oh, see, that's easy. The
offer.
importance of having a network.
Yeah, there you go. Right. And the funny thing is, she and I
Hmm.
knew each other. I was her math coach. Um, so,
Wow.
yeah, so it
Nice.
was like, hey, like, okay, that's easy. Like I got that. And not so much that it was easy, like you said, because that's just networking and taking advantage of it. But at the
Hmm.
same time, there was a lot going on in my personal life that felt like it was in competition with the ways that I wanted to grow.
Mm.
And then I was like, well, is it just that? And so I work a lot with consultants. And so I was like, that's interesting. So let me look into this. And
Hmm.
I'm not in order. I was looking at the consulting stuff first. And even with that,
Okay.
I saw a coach on Facebook who resonated with me, went into one of her meetings and what have you. And she was like, listen, you tired of being in that classroom? You've been working with consultants and you look at the work they do and you're like, I could do this and better. And I was like, yep, all of that is me. And so I signed up for a
Nugget
mastermind with
number two, the power of
yeah,
the coach.
there you go.
Hmm.
I signed up with her, and that's how I got kind of, like
Okay.
the groundworks going of setting up that business, literally just knowing like how to set up the LLC and all these types of things. And we were doing
Mm.
business trips, and she's like, listen, you got to understand what your life can be like. So I got to put you all in these positions. So we had a big trip in in Mexico, and it was fabulous. And then
I
we met her.
bet. What was
Yeah,
this trip about?
it
Was it
was
like a retreat, or were you?
it was a retreat, but again, it was kind of like the in person because everything we had been doing was through Zoom. So it was our opportunity to meet
Okay.
in person, and do more work along understanding how we were setting up our businesses and getting like in person support with other coaches that she brought in as well. And and that made it so different than just Zoom. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
personalized it a lot more. You were able to build the networks a lot better. And so just like all of these things. And, it was, you know, like I said, I got 3 kids. And so now they're bigger and they need to start moving around. I had no car and no license. So Uber was expensive.
Wow. Hmm.
So
But
like I had to,
let's stop there for a minute. Let's stop there one quick second.
yep.
At that time in your adult life, you did not have a driver's license.
Mhm.
Why didn't you ever get one? And
You know,
were you not excited as a teenager? All your friends, everybody's running out and getting their driver's license, and you just decided, no, I'll wait. And I admit, I was one of those people. I was like, my mom can just drive me, everywhere. I'm not rushing out to get my license.
yeah,
I don't think I actually got my license until I was 20, like a
oh,
month before I gave birth. So that's my story. That's how long I waited. Yeah.
no,
Isn't that crazy?
it's so odd because I'm from Detroit, right? Motor City. So,
Detroit. I have family
yeah,
from Detroit.
driver's ed is a part of your high school curriculum. And so,
Mm.
But it was like,
As
after
was
school.
mine.
Yeah, yeah, see? But I just didn't do it. My dad would take me around or what have you. And then when I left, I went to school in Washington, DC. I didn't need it. Um you know, um
True.
and so, I didn't need it until I needed it. And that was 3 kids
Mhm.
later.
Makes sense. Living in a big city, I mean, you really don't need to have a car. I mean, some people obviously want to and have certain
Yeah,
uses for it, but yeah, I get it. All right, so
yeah.
back to the Mexico trip with your coach.
Yeah, and so like that was cool, but everything was lining up professionally, but at home, whole nother story. Um, there
Mhm.
was,
And
you
when
know,
so was that trip a turning point for you in the setting up of your business? Did you come back and was like, I'm ready to move forward? Like, how long had you been working with the coach up until the trip to Mexico?
so we started in September. What year was that? Like September, I think it was 2021. Um, and or
Okay.
22. Like my years are going off in my mind, but it was one of the two. But it was in September. The trip
Oh,
was in
man, those
February.
years, 2021, 22, they just jumbled up, aren't they?
I'm like, so I don't want to tell a
I'm
lie.
sorry.
I'm gonna months.
I'm sorry. I had to interrupt because I do the exact same thing. I don't know what those COVID years, it just kind of ran together. So, okay, back to you.
Um, whole nother story. But yeah, like we started. I did that first meeting with her in September. The mastermind started in October. The trip to Mexico was in February.
Okay.
And then so all of that was like learning how to write proposals and all this type of stuff. So it was a lot of setup. Um, and I'd done all of that. And so it was just now like, not being so scared to like start. But in the meantime, again, life is life and you got all these things going on. And I just wasn't getting support. Um, and so there was like a lot of jealousies, a lot of, eventually I was accused of, well, you're not really on a business trip, you're meeting other people and all this type of stuff. And it's like, who has time for that? I'm trying to do
Mhm.
something that I'm thinking makes life better, not just for me, but if it's better for me, it's better for all of us,
Mhm.
at least my thinking. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
because those kinds of things can deflate your progress. You know what I
right.
mean? And what you're working towards, if you don't have the proper support at home, that's like a kink in the chain and it can really stunt the growth that you have planned. So this was progressing, I'm imagining, with your partner. It wasn't getting any better.
Mhm.
And then let's tell us about um, the the point at which you decided, okay, I have to make a change.
Yeah.
Did it become, you know, did it get out of hand? Did it become dangerous? Like, what were the signs that when you finally decided that you need to get out of there?
Mhm. It was progressive, we would have our arguments and when they were arguments, but then, every now and then we would have our fights. And this year, it was just every argument led to a fight. It led to me and the kids leaving the house. It led to the police being called. It led to, him leaving the house and him, coming to me to say that he had met somebody else on his job. And so then I put him out the house and, he comes back. We try again. And it just keeps recycling. And the same accusations keep coming up over and over again. And so the last fight, which was last August, was like the last fight. Like that was it.
Mhm.
It
You had had
was
enough.
yeah. I had had enough. Sometimes the arguments were with him sober. Sometimes he wasn't. And so, like, that became a whole nother issue. And then this one was just, he brandished a knife at me. The police had been called twice. He called the
Mm.
police on me. The kids are running back and forth literally between us for every place we are in the house. They're going in the opposite direction and they're hearing, everything that's going on. And then I'm watching how they're responding to it, and at the time they're 11, 8, and 5. And, to
Okay.
hear the
Little
conversation
impressionable.
extremely, and my son is the oldest. So my he I never we never married. So my fiance and I were back and forth, and and all of this really tripped because I said I had turned down the assistant principal position. I turned it down because essentially they were kind of offering me the same pay that I was making in the classroom. And so that's when I was like, you know what? Maybe this is a sign. Just go ahead, launch your business. You kind of got enough of a foundation to get things going. And so I approached him with that, like, hey, that didn't work out. I'd already talked to him about that. Like, but this is now that I've been working on this for so many months, like, let me do it. And so I'm like, listen, you'll need to cover things. I'm going to need some help financially for, like, give me 6 to 8 months, 9 months max. Like, because I had pretty much been covering a lot of things financially. And at first it was like, okay, great, do your thing. And it went from that to, I need to see bank statements. I need to see,
Mm.
you've just been all over the place and you go here and there when you want to. And you've been so gullible and you're just giving your money away to these people and all this type of stuff. And
Mm.
so it just progressed into just a
Mhm.
big. And so I had gone, we were upstairs. I ran downstairs. He follows me. The kids go upstairs. And I ended up sitting on the couch in the living room, and he's like yelling at me, like nose to nose. And the one thing he said that triggered for me, because at this point, like, I was kind of used to the arguments, like whatever, was when he said to me that the toilet paper he used to wipe his ass with was more useful than me. And I'm like, wow, 16 years, three
Yeah,
kids, and this is what I get. All
that's pretty
because,
profound. I'm
yeah,
guessing you woke up when you
yeah,
heard that. Yes,
hmm
something inside you was like, all right, Cassandra, it's time to wake up.
yeah,
What we
it's
gonna
time.
do?
It's time to do
Yeah.
something different. And I think what really solidified it, because even in that moment it woke me up, like you said, but that wasn't what made me say it's time to go. He left out of the house for a
Ah,
minute,
okay.
and the kids started coming downstairs. And when my son came down, he came down first by himself, and he walked over to me and he repeated it. And then he
Mm.
started apologizing for it because he was like, that's not true. That's not who you are, you know. And then the girls came down, and my youngest, she was just in tears, and she's walking, she's covering her ears, all this type of stuff. And my oldest
Mhm.
daughter, she was like, well, what's wrong with him? Like, why is he doing this? Why is he saying this? And my son says to him, like, she was like, he's a grown man, why is he saying this? And so they're kind of like going back and forth with her questioning, and my son says, stop saying that. And she was like, saying what? And he was like, he's like, he's an adult, but he's not a man. And she was
And
like,
how old was your son at this time? Was he 11?
11.
He was 11. Oh my gosh, I love him.
And
You
that
know
was
that
his.
saying, kids say the darndest things
Mhm,
or out of the
mhm,
mouth of babes. I mean, he how did he even know to say those
Mhm.
things?
Right.
It's like,
And
wow.
you can imagine I'm sitting, among them, and I'm listening to it. They weren't even talking to me. Like, they were talking to each other. And then my daughter was just like, like, I guess you got a point.
Incredible.
And they're
But
11 and
that
8.
was, wow. But that was the moment in which you decided to make a change when you heard your son repeat
Mhm,
what he had heard,
mhm,
that vile statement, and you're
mhm,
like, no, you don't want
mhm,
him to absorb those things,
mhm. Yep.
growing into a young man.
Right.
Wow.
And there was plenty more that was said, but to be honest, Bianca, that was the only thing I even remember to this day. Because like
Mm-hmm.
I said, it become a norm. So all the rest of it was just like, okay, same old, like, all right, let's get it over with. But that
Right.
state, mm-mm. So the next, he came back and it was just more. So that's when he brandished a knife. I ran in the kitchen. I got knives. I'm like, oh, okay, you want a knife? I got a knife. I got three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we, we ended up like fighting on the staircase. I don't even remember. Like it was just all of this. And then he went and called the police. So now the police are there and they're like, well, we can't put him out and we can't put you out. Like neither one of you own the house. And so, you said some things, he said some things, you did some things, he did some things. This is what the officer says. So like, let's just call it a wash. Okay. Uh,
Mm.
so he went upstairs, he grabbed some things. There were two officers that escorted him. Two officers stayed with me in the kitchen. He comes down and he stops on his way out at the kitchen door and says, "You're marked." And nobody did
Oh, wait,
anything.
I didn't
Nobody.
hear that. Kassan, you sound a little low right
I'm
now.
sorry. He
I didn't
says,
hear what he said.
"Oh," he said, "You're marked." And like everybody just stood there like, oh, okay, whatever. And I was like, you all not gonna, that's a threat. Like nobody's gonna say anything.
Right. What does that mean?
So, like, oh, like bad things will come to you or I'll get you later type of thing. Um,
Oh,
girl.
my goodness.
So they were just like, and I said to them, I said, okay, so you all just won't be satisfied until you have to come back to this house to take somebody out in a body bag, and it won't be me. And that, that was the other
I
one
like
that
that kind of thinking. You ended it with, and it won't be me.
it won't. I'm like, and the thing was,
Right.
like, I wholeheartedly meant it. It won't be me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but that's also not my character. I mean, of course, anybody's going to try to protect themselves, but I'm not out here really thinking day to day on like how to get somebody, how to kill somebody, how to, that's not
Right.
me. And so I was like, nah, this is too much. Like, and it's altering my thinking too much
Mm-hmm.
because now I just feel like
And
I
you
have
can't
to.
focus. It's taking
Mhm.
time away from your focus. The things that you want to be putting
Right.
attention towards and that you need to be putting attention towards, and you can't because you have this very negative influence.
And it's
So,
like, and you gotta protect yourself and live and survive before you can do any of that other stuff. And so, yeah, so I
hmm
called, they left. That was like early Saturday morning, like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. He came back a few hours later and then he called the police on me again at like 10 o'clock Saturday morning. And
hmm
And so when I finished with, once we done with them, and they pretty much came and said the same thing, oh, we can't really do anything, but um, and I got on the phone. My son came in. I was in the kitchen. My son came in and he took the knives away from me. And again, that the visual of that for me was just like, this is insane. And so
Hmm.
I called my mom and I was like, listen, um, I need to come home if that's possible. And she was like, okay, come. And I was like, I'm not talking about a visit. And she was like, do what you gotta do, and so that
Thank
was that
God for
second.
moms.
Yep. She was like, do what you got. And because I just, and it wasn't even like just being home. Like I always came home to visit and whatever. But the last time that I came, which I wasn't even thinking about it at the moment, I had just left home from visiting at the end of
Mhm.
July. And this was like early August.
Okay.
And when I left, it was the first time I left home when I was 17. So I've been gone for 30 years. Come back and visit, but I hadn't lived here in 30 years. And it was the first time
Hmm.
ever that I came back and felt like I wanted to come back. Um, but I
Wow.
never said anything to anybody. I didn't like I knew it in my mind, but I didn't like try to really acknowledge it. And before we left, my daughter was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about staying here?" And I was like, "What you mean?" She was like, "You like it here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I grew up here and whatever." She was like, "No, I don't mean like in this house or whatever." Because I thought she was like, "No, I mean in the state. Like, do you like it here?" And I'm like, okay. And again,
So
I
your
had never,
children were like, if I got this right, your children are acting as like your guardian angels, and they probably didn't even realize that they're looking out for you in ways you can't even imagine. It's like you're the adult, but the children are coming to you with ideas and suggestions and getting you to think about, making important decisions. That's amazing. I love children.
yeah, absolutely. And again, I was just in my mind like, I never said to anybody that I ever was thinking about this. And she was just like,
Hmm.
she just put it out there and she went on about her business. And um, I'm like, okay, so I guess subconsciously it's stuck. But then at the same time, like you said, Bianca, that resonated more with me than the fact that one of his family members had called me like in May out the blue. Just usually I'm just like, oh, hey, what's up? Catch it up, how you doing? And they said to me, have you ever considered moving out and getting your own place?
Mm.
I got some information, let me help you. His family.
Wow.
And and I did
So
start
even other people were noticing.
looking. I did start looking and I was just like, oh my God, like all of this stuff is like so super, super expensive. And, I'm like, I don't know that I can handle that and whatever. And yeah, so the fact that I ended up, making an even bigger move than what I had even anticipated, um, has been
Mm.
a whole blessing. It really has, even though it wasn't
Wow.
necessarily in my plans. But the way things moved when I actually decided to start moving, the way things panned out when I actually took action, I knew
Hmm.
that it had to be, and I have to say it's divine order because there were too many things that did take place that I couldn't have planned even if I tried to. And
Right.
so we left. All of that happened like by that Saturday. I had planned on leaving Wednesday after he went to work. Girl, he took the week off. Uh,
Every time we get a plan, something tries to come in between, somebody and their plan. Every time. Like my
every
mother would say, ain't nothing but the devil.
and I'm like, that was part of the problem. Like every time something would happen, like it all fell on me. I'm like, and now all of a sudden you got days that you can take off. Really? So I already had my car by this point. So I had gone out to my car, made my phone call, set up everything because I was paying the utilities. I had finally stopped paying the rent for like 2 years. And and he was handling that. And I was handling everything else. And so I had to go and cancel all the cancellations that I had put in place because we were still there. And,
Right. Oh my
and
goodness.
it was crazy. And so like that Thursday, but I had already like started packing in plain sight, like literally. Um and so I had all our paperwork was together and I put that away in one place. And in the middle of the argument that happened and whatever, somewhere along the way I stopped. I remember in the bedroom and he's like, and I started separating the laundry. And so And in that, we would always take the laundry out on Sundays and whatever. And so I was like, well, he took his stuff, and I was like, well, I don't care if he don't have to take mine, and I mixed mine with the kids, and he did. So all of that to say, our clothes were washed and packed very neatly in one bag, and that's what I brought.
Good.
So I brought that with me, and like I said, we were gonna leave Wednesday and I couldn't do that. And so Thursday I was like, okay, Thursday. Like I'm done. I'm tired. This is it. And
And was he still home at this point? This was during the week that he was home.
hmm
Okay.
yep.
How did you get around that?
He decided he was like, I'm gonna look for another job or whatever. And he's like, I'm gonna go up the street, check them out and see what they're talking about. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I had told the kids that we were going school shopping. So everybody was already up and washed and dressed and everything. And then when he decided to leave, that's when I was like, okay, he about to go. So while the kids
Let's
were
do it.
in the living room, they watching their tablets and playing and stuff. And in the meantime, I'm loading up the car. And um, and I'm like, okay, let's go. And they're like, all right, we ready. And I'm like, bring your tablet. I mean, bring your because they will always bring their tablets. I'm like, bring your chargers. And they're like, but we just going up the street. I'm like, just bring the charger. Let's go. I put
I really admire that you can laugh about this now. I'm sure then it was not a laughing matter.
mm,
And even
mm-mm,
hearing about it is not a laughing matter, but that's behind you. And
mhm,
because I'm laughing with you, I
mhm, mm,
want you to understand you laughing, I'm
yeah.
laughing because I
No,
like the way you're
I
telling the
feel you.
story. And it's it's good because it's like, oh, I'm done with that. Those days are behind me. We can laugh about it now. It was crazy the way things came together, but we made it work. So kids
Absolutely.
got their chargers, and then what happened?
I was like, okay, I need to stop and get gas. I topped off the gas and I was gonna stop and get them like some snacks and all this type of stuff. And I'm like, well, I need some money, just to have some cash on me. Excuse me. And so I do all of this. And I was gonna go one place and I decided to go to another. And I go into the parking lot, we get out to go to the bank, and we almost walked right into him. So I'm
Mm.
like, he's supposed to be that way, And so
I
I'm
was
like,
thinking he's supposed to be, what did he say, looking for a new job or
"Mhm."
something.
Yep, he
And
was.
there's
And
another obstacle in your way. Isn't that crazy?
right. So I'm like, oh my God. So I tell them, I'm like, get in the car. They get in the car. They're looking at me like I'm crazy. And he starts pulling off and he like drove right past me. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh
Oh,
my God.
mm,
And the kids are like, "What's the matter?" Oh my God, oh my God. And so I'm watching him and I'm like, okay, if he goes to the left, he's probably going home. If he goes to the right, I don't know where he's going because that's where the freeway is and that's where I need to go. And
Mm.
so when he came out, he made the left. I'm like, okay, he's probably going back to the house. So I moved the car and I was like, okay, forget the bank. Uh, I'm like, we gonna go get these snacks and I just get cash back when I get the snacks. And so we
Yeah.
go into the store. I take them to the snack aisle, and I'm like, "Get snacks." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Just get snacks. Just get snacks." And so they're looking at me, Bianca, and they're like, my daughter comes and she's like, "Can I have these cookies?" I'm like, "Yes, let's go, like get snacks."
What about the cart?
And my son's like, everybody's asking all these questions. Can I get this bag? Can I get? I'm like, I don't care. Just get snacks.
Hmm.
So I grab water. And when we go to the cash register, it was like some Snickers there. So I grabbed a couple of those and I got my cash back. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So we get in the car and I make the right turn going to the freeway. Now, I never drove on the freeway before, ever. So,
Mm. My goodness.
so when we get on the ramp, they were all in the back seat, like, what are you
And
doing?
they knew this too, right? When they...
They know
Oh
because
my God.
anytime we were in the car, everything I had to do was like pretty local for the most part, or I jump on the train. So, um, so
Hmm.
yeah, so they're like, what are we doing? So I'm like, okay, do you guys trust me? Like, and so now I have to have this conversation with them in the car as we're on the freeway. And they're like,
Yeah.
they're like, where are we going? And so I said, okay, I'm like, listen, we're going to grandma's house. And so then they go, okay, so how are we getting there? Like, oh yeah. So in my head, I'm like, all right, they don't know about a road trip because I would always fly back.
Hmm.
So they said, so my son's like, so we going to the airport? No. I said, I'm driving. And they're like, you and who? I'm
Your
like,
kids are little characters. It's like they're ahead of their time.
oh my God. It was crazy. I'm like, okay, like, so we start going. And at this point, like literally my heart is racing, like my hands are shaking. Again, I've never been on the freeway, so not as a driver.
Hmm.
So, I'm learning my car long. And so I put in like 2 hours and I was like, okay, my nerves are frayed. It started raining, like I
Hmm.
almost hit somebody. I was like, okay, that's it. I gotta go. It's time to
Oh,
cross the road. Uh, so we had crossed the state lines by then. I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. Uh,
right.
and we spent the night. It was hard conversations in that night.
Yeah.
I had blocked his phone number even when I was still in the house. I had already done that. And then I had started getting phone calls, and if it wasn't my immediate family, like I just wouldn't take the calls. And
Hmm.
so then I got a text from him and it was like, are you guys okay? I just want to know. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want this to turn into like an Amber Alert type situation or something. So I did reply. I was just like, we're fine. And the following morning, we got up and I pretty much drove most of the way back. And so we stopped again And, I had a lot of friends and family calling and directing me, okay, make sure you leave this time of day and blah, blah, blah. And make sure you stop and don't drive at night. And, all of these things. And so it took like 3 days, not because, and so I finally made it. And,
How many hours was the drive?
I mean, really in all, it was probably about two, like 8 to 9 hours. All
Total,
to
okay.
so it wasn't terrible. And then as I got
But
closer, like,
still, you were a new driver.
Mhm.
That was an adventure. But you know what they say, when you have something that you're trying to do, you're going to get it done by
Mhm,
any means necessary. You're going
mhm,
to figure it out. It's like sink or
mhm,
swim
mhm,
mentality. And you're like, I know I want to leave. I need to leave. This is where I need to go. So, I feel like you were just guided,
mhm.
and protected that whole entire time.
Yep. And that's exactly
So,
how I felt.
you know,
Thank you. It
kudos
was
to you.
a
Yeah.
little over 500 miles. And
Mm,
we, just I think about an hour and a half or so outside of the trip. Like, I was good, girl. I was like, okay, we floating. Nobody's out here. It's a Saturday morning. I'm good.
hmm
My eyes started closing up because something got into my contact.
Oh, no.
It took
Oh,
too
my
long.
gosh. Of course it did. Again, it's like those little things just,
Yeah,
they're always going to keep coming
yeah,
in when you have something
yeah.
important to do, when you have a plan, but
It was
you
just,
kept it moving.
and we finally make it. I pull into the lot at my mom's place. And so I'm calling my siblings. I call my brothers.
How did you feel
Oh my God.
after you accomplished, I mean, this major feat, actually two major feats? One, you decided to leave and you made it happen. Two, driving on the highway as a brand new driver. That's an adventure in itself. I mean, you could have, that takes courage. When things got tough along the way, you could have been like, this is, you know what? This is too much. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't think I can do it. You could have turned around and went back. That would have been the easiest thing to do. But you didn't. You
Mhm,
stayed the course. You stopped when you needed to. And so that is the attitude that we need to take in for our listeners in every situation in our lives. Yeah, it might be difficult. There might be kinks in the plans, but we have to figure out a way to work through them so that we can come out on the other side,
yeah.
as the victor, in which you did. So
Mhm.
I'm so happy for you
Thank
that you made that choice for yourself and
you.
your children
Yeah.
to get you in a better place
Mhm,
of safety so that
mhm.
it's like you can woosah, start
Yes.
to reset
Mhm,
and get your life back
mhm.
and make sure your children are adjusting okay. So,
And that's where that pivot
you
came into.
know,
Like, that's where I was like,
mhm,
when I parked the car, the kids got out, they were playing stickball or something on the front. And like I said, I'm calling family. I called my two girlfriends who were like, we'll come and help you if you need it. And I'm like, I'm here. And so they were like, okay, we're on our way. And so while they were coming, I'm making other phone calls and whatever. And I'm in tears. And it's mixed emotions of all kind. When they came to my car door, like, I just lost it. They had to finish the conversation
mhm,
for me. And they're like, okay, get out the car. Come on, we got you from this point. I was like, I'm not driving no more today. They was like, we got you. Get out the car. And I couldn't get out.
right,
And they're like, you can do this.
mm,
You got to stand up. You got to, give yourself, you've been behind the wheel for a minute. Like, get up, get out the car. And like, literally, the door was open and everything. And I'm holding on to the steering wheel and I could not get out the car for a minute. And then when I finally
mhm,
did, and like, I felt like a little babe learning how to walk. Like, they're like, okay, move this leg, like, turn this way. And I finally get out and
yep,
my entire abdomen was sore. And I didn't even realize it until I got out the car and stood up that I was so sore. And I
Mm,
just fell over on them and just was in tears. And they were literally holding me up. And,
mhm.
they whispered in my ear and they like, you did it, you made it, you got it, you did it, And I'm like, at that point, I don't even have words. Like all I could do was cry. That was it. And
Yeah.
I just couldn't. And like I said, it was so many mixed emotions, so many. And every
Mhm.
like, take a day or two and rest. Just rest. Don't worry about anything else because now my mind kept going and I'm like, okay, we're here. Now I gotta find, the kids gotta go to school and they need and everybody was like,
Right.
no, like just rest. Like all of those things will come and to whatever help you need, we here. But that's not what you need right now. They're fine. You see them, they're out there playing. They're fine. you know, for
Yeah.
what it's worth, they're okay. They're like, you gotta be okay. And you gotta
Yeah.
rest. So that's where I was. And once I finally did get things together, like I reached out through Facebook Messenger to a group of my high school classmates, some of whom I'd been in touch with, over the years, some of whom I hadn't. We were just Facebook acquaintances, hit a like, happy birthday, that type of thing. And in my mind, I had to follow my spirit, and it was like, contact this one, this one, this one, and everybody had a purpose. I was like, okay, I know this one is a social worker. I know this one is a doctor. I know this, and I just put like 5 or 6 of them in one group, and I was like, listen, this is my situation. Put your pride to the side because I could be that way. Mm-mm, I need help, and this is where I'm at. This is what
Wow.
and this is where I am. I got my kids with me. And when I tell you, they stepped up in major ways. Like one was helping me find a job. I had to speak to her about that. Another was like, "Hey, I got bags of clothes for you to go through for your kids." The other one is a pediatrician. She was like, and I was just reaching out to say, "Hey, do you have some advice or context or recommendations, whatever?" She was like, "Yeah, me. I'll take all 3 of your kids." And I was like, how? And she said, I'm not supposed to take anymore, but that's for me to figure out, not you. She's their pediatrician. Like, it was so
Wow.
many things. The other one was like, you need counseling. She's like, we'll get it for the kids, but you need therapy. Here's a contact. I got that set up. I'm like, I don't know how to get, I don't have health insurance and my son needs blood work by the end of September, and they're like, here's the number. This is what I had another girlfriend who was like, yeah, she reached out. She's like, I've been there. I never knew that. She was like, so here's what you need.
Mhm.
Call this person, call that person, come back to me, let me know how you doing when you ready, And so it was just, that's why I said it was such a divine alignment. I'm like, I need a school for my kids. Okay, here are some recommendations. like, and then the school that I found, um, my kids had never been to school together. They had always been in 3 separate schools. And this was their first year together. And when I tell you that community meant as much to me personally as it did for them, it was everything. I sat there, Bianca, and I prayed over every kid because all of them have different needs. And I prayed for everything. And this one school had everything that I asked for, everything. So I was just like, and when I called the school, they were like, "Oh, tonight is our open house for new families." you know, I
Everything was coming together. I mean, isn't that magnificent? You assembled a group of soldiers. You got the soldiers together, working on your behalf, making things happen for you, you and the children. It's, I mean, when things like that happen, like you said, divine order.
yeah,
Sometimes you gotta look back and like, oh my gosh,
yep.
I never could have planned it that way.
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
Oh,
And
this
that's
is good.
I knew it because I could not have for all of those types of things to
Mhm.
fall into place, particularly in the time frame that it did, for everything that I needed
Mhm.
in that particular moment. There's no way that
Yeah.
I could have planned that. None. There was absolutely none. And it just left me in wonder, you know, that I'm like, again, like I said, I just had to keep saying, like, this is divine order. And so I'm like, I know while I still question whether or not I did the right thing, not so much in leaving in and of itself, but did I need to come all the way back here? You know, could I have
Mhm.
stayed there
Right.
but moved out and still made the difference that we needed? And in as much as I kept focusing on them, what I now realize, and it took me a minute to get there, was that I had to focus on me. And I
Mhm.
felt guilty.
Absolutely.
But I'm like, now I realize, like, the most selfish thing you can do is not take care of yourself. You can't take care of everybody else. And
Mhm.
and you're not together, so like my health wasn't together, and I didn't even realize any of this. I had gotten all things set up for them. Like I said, they had a doctor. I made sure they went to their appointments, all this stuff. I didn't do any of it for myself. And
Mhm.
I
That's
set
how it is sometimes, as moms. We want to make sure everything is good for the kids. I mean, because that's our job, right? But then you have to step back. Well, who's looking out for me? And it's like we have to take control and take charge of our lives, our health, and our entire
Mhm.
well being.
Yep. And I was
But yeah,
just
I
like,
get what you're saying.
it was a lot, and it took, even my mom sat me down and was like, okay, so now what about you? And I really was like, what about me? Like, like, I'm good. I'll figure it out. She's like, you're not good.
Hmm.
You're not good. Um, and now I'm like wanting to argue with her. I'm like, I'm good. She's like, no, you're not. She's like, you're not good.
They know.
She's like, so when are your doctor's appointments? What? Give me the dates for those. You gave me the kids. It's like, when are yours? And I'm like, I don't have any. She's like, yeah. She's like, when do you go to the dentist? I don't have that. Yeah, like,
Hmm.
do you not see that you need these things too? And so, like, okay. So I finally got that together, whatever, and I good thing I did. I ended up in the emergency room, shortness of breath. And like my blood count was low. When I go in, they're like, oh, you need a double blood transfusion and all this type of stuff. And again, another pivotal moment, where I'm like, hey, okay, yeah, you made that move, but if you don't make the move to get your health together, you not gonna be here. Like, when you
Right.
driving and walking around and you literally aren't breathing correctly, that's a problem.
Hmm.
And your body is
Yeah.
telling you. It's not trying to tell you, it's telling you that you gotta do better. And that means you have to put yourself first. You took care of what they needed immediately. Take care of you. And so so I started going to the gym and I started, all these things. And for everything that was wrong to this day is corrected. If it was positive and it should have been negative, now it's negative. If, whatever it was,
Oh,
everything. My gynecologist was like, yeah, you're putting me out of business. I don't need to see you. And she's like, and that's how it's supposed to. So, I had 3 doctors. I had my internist, my gynecologist, and then I had to go to a hematologist. And he was like, "Yeah, your iron is so low." And I was like, "No, but I'm taking iron supplements and whatever." And he was like, "Okay, let me put it to you this way." He's like, "Your iron is so low that what you're taking is like taking a bucket of water to put out a house fire." Like,
Oh, goodness.
okay.
Wow. So how do you reverse that level of deficiency?
I had to get 3 infusions. And he was just trying to bring me up to like minimal levels. And then he was like, then you
Mhm.
go and do your supplements and whatever. He was like, but yeah, right now, when I did the double blood transfusion, it barely moved my numbers. And so between
Yeah.
the 3 doctors, everybody was sharing their findings and whatever to help me, give me the advice that I needed to kind of pull it together. And they were like, and the working out was helping. And what did I end up doing? Kickboxing, of all things. Uh, and I
That's a
was like,
workout for you.
and it's a workout and it's a therapeutic one too.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. I read that you tried a few things, kickboxing, kettlebell training, yoga, and finally axe throwing. And when
Mhm.
I saw that, I'm like, well, what is how did
So
you even get introduced to that? But
my
you see the change that you made, the 360? That is incredible. And I hope you were able to stop and recognize those changes and look back and like, yeah, oh my gosh, I did that. I'm proud of myself because
Mhm,
we have to celebrate those moments, large, small, and everything in between, because it keeps us going. It gives us the fuel to continue and to progress in life. And it's so important for your children to see that progression. And they're like, wow, mom did that. You
mhm,
know, she was a new driver. She drove on the highway all those hours.
mhm,
She worked on her health and brought herself back to good health, you know, while she's taking care of our health.
mhm.
So kudos to you for all of those things.
Yep,
So fast forward, you know, you've been in Detroit for how many months
11.
so far? 11 months, almost 1 year. Wow, you're coming up on a 1 year anniversary
Mhm,
and you have made tremendous strides in your life, and I'm sure in your children's lives as you've watched them, you know, get adjusted to a new environment.
mhm,
But how has that been for you these past 11 months? Have you taken like a, I don't know, time to reflect on all of it?
mhm. Um, I have, but I've had to do it in parts because sometimes thinking back on the totality of it, like what I'm telling you, what I'm sharing today is really just a part. So
Oh, I'm
when
sure.
I start
Hmm.
to think about it, sometimes my mind takes me back like to when we first met, like, and so that's why
Hmm.
it's the totality of it is a lot. But that's where like therapy helps.
Hmm. It's a process, right?
It is. It is. It's a huge process. And then so right now, like I can definitely look back on this last year, like you said, and see a lot of progress and acknowledge it because I can be at times. I'm not. I'm learning how to do better. So I gotta watch my language. Um, that
Hmm.
I used to bury my head and it's just like work, work, work. Okay, yeah, this got done, check. It was a
Hmm.
thing to do, check. Okay, good, check. But to step back and breathe and acknowledge it and see, oh, you started here and now you here and I do it for everybody else, but not for myself. And so like
Hmm.
I'm learning how to do it and seeing how much that means to, like you said, being able to move further. It's like, am I scared still about things? Yeah. Did I get here afraid to do it? Absolutely. And
Hmm.
sometimes I need that reminder to make myself move in other aspects of my life because, it's a work in progress. It's life, so the journey doesn't
It
end.
is,
It doesn't end.
right.
And that's why I like that aspect of the pivot, because that's what it is. And like I told you, I was like trying to consider it as starting anew. I'm like, oh my God, I'm 47. I'm starting all over. And no, you're not. You come in with experience that you didn't have when you left here at
Hmm.
7, you know, and so
Right.
to give myself credit, for those things as well. And that's what I say to anybody in a similar situation or just looking to step out of that comfort zone and make a move. It happens when you actually move. Like, you got to do something different. You have to start moving in the direction of whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, for mine, in many ways, it was a literal move. But again, I didn't plan it. It wasn't like, okay,
Hmm.
moving down the line and this is where we're headed. It wasn't. It felt last minute. It was like I
Right.
told you, I had my laundry bag of whatever could fit in a laundry bag for 3 kids and
And
myself.
sometimes that's how it has to happen, right?
Mhm,
Because if you maybe were to try to plan it out for the future, like later on,
mhm.
maybe you put it like a 90-day plan or a 2-month plan, something big could have gotten away, or maybe you could have changed your mind. But sometimes we're pushed and it's quick and we need to react quickly. It's
Yep,
like you got to think on your feet. All right, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it today. We only got the laundry bag full of clean clothes. Guess what? That's all we need. Go
we
get some
get.
money, snacks for the kids. We got the car. That's all we
Yep,
need.
yep.
It's not always about putting together this perfect plan. Oh, I
Mhm,
got to wait until I save this much.
yep,
Oh, I have to make sure I find a place when I get there. You already had a support system set up for where you were going, and you had money that you needed to get for the trip. You took your breaks, and boom, it happened. The kids were fine. They had food.
mhm.
You had gas, obviously, because you made it there. So that's how it is sometimes. We have to act,
Yeah,
or we're just going to stay where we are and stay stagnant. And who knows what the outcome could be? It's like you recognized that you deserved more, and so did your children. And you got the urge to move. You get picked up the courage and everything else you needed to get up and go.
yeah.
So, just because it wasn't this fancy, pretty story and,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, like, the whole pretty plan, perfect plan. No, it doesn't take all that.
Right.
It doesn't take all that. It just takes movement. And when
Yeah.
you start to move, that's when the doors open.
And I'm
So
still doing it. I'm
that's
still
wonderful.
very much
Mhm.
so a planner. So I am the one who's kind of like, okay, so things need to be, like this and this and this. And it'll take me forever to move because I'm waiting for that perfect time and that right moment.
See, I'm guilty of that too. But you also recognize when it's time to do something, something kicks in. You were listening to, I'm guessing, your inner voice, your gut. You're like, no, I have to do this now. I can't wait 3 months. Yes, I like to plan. I like to be orderly, organized, and everything. But sometimes in the moment, you just have to get up and go.
And like
And
you
that's
said,
what you did.
in that moment, it was like, you know what you have is enough. That's it. You have
Mhm.
enough to do what you need to do. And like I said, I was like, you got all your legal paperwork, check. You got clothes, check. Bounce.
Mhm.
Like that's what you.
Exactly. So, Cassandra, I want to touch before we get into the strawberry round. I want to touch on where you are at the present time and briefly what your near future plans are. You mentioned before that you were working with a coach
Mhm.
to, start to build your business. I imagine that had to take a back seat
Mm.
because of the, huge pivot that you were making, new environment and getting adjusted. Where are you with your business now?
So I made some adjustments to like my business model. I was going to do it one way with that particular coach, and she was kind of like coaching you, how to do it this way. And then I was like, you know what? I need to, while that had its flexibility, it would also kind of like require me to travel a lot. And I was like, I need something that still gives me flexibility but can give me a home base because I still got my 3. And so I've transitioned it to online coaching. But then I was like, okay, I don't, how do I set that up? Uh, so So I got another coach who specializes in how you set up online coaching. Um, and so I'm actually
Mhm.
in that program right now, like learning how to do these things and how to. So that's where I'm at with that for the moment. And then
Mhm.
of course, now I'm like, okay, I need a job to kind of help with the income um, and supporting
Mhm.
these things. And so, I do have, 2 offers that I'm looking at now. So I will have something that, and I'm still in education, so everything will start back up,
Mhm.
September. Thank God for that. And,
Yeah.
and so that's where I'm at, professionally. Health-wise, like I said, everything is together. I'm down 14 pounds of fat. Um, and so
Nice. You've been putting in work.
and, now that
That's
they're
awesome. Keep up the excellent work.
Thank you. And now that they're out for the summer, like, I have to adapt it a little bit, but now we walk at least 5 days a week. And so they come with me, and so we make it a part of our day, And so that's been really cool because they champion me, and they're like, okay, it's time to go. We need to go. We gotta walk. We gotta, even when I don't feel like it, I'm like,
That's
okay.
good you got them involved. I mean, at those ages, they are, I would say, the most supportive and willing to
Mhm.
literally stand by your side. Because once they get older, they get to doing their own thing. But right now, that's good. They're pushing you and they're doing it with you. I love that.
That's been really helpful. And sometimes the hard
Hmm.
conversations still come up. Um, because they still have questions, they still want to go back. And so we're,
Hmm.
having to still have those conversations, and it's cool. I try to keep it, as age appropriate as I possibly can. And I don't try to
Hmm.
downplay that. We have resumed discussion because I kept him blocked until I left in August, and I didn't unblock his number until December 31st. And
Good for you.
that was the first time that I had spoken to him, that the kids had spoken to him. And you live and you learn. Everything is not perfect. In retrospect, I could have done that differently, because that first conversation didn't
Mhm.
go well. But we can have conversations now, and so can they. And so it's still a work in progress around a lot of that,
Mhm.
but it's better than where it was because it's not my intention to isolate them from their dad or from his family or anything like that. I just needed to get out of his presence for me and for them, because I felt like at this point it's a safety matter, and I knew it was, because like I said, what I said
Mhm.
to the officers, I wholeheartedly meant it. And that was a shakeup just in my spirit, because I'm like, that's not who I am, but it's what I'll do if that's what's necessary. And like, to think that
Mhm.
you're in a relationship where you would feel that it would be necessary to go that, nah. Uh, so
Mm-mm.
mm-mm, not worth it.
Well, let's move into the strawberry round. I know you got your cheat sheet, so this should this should go well. And if you don't have an answer for something, feel free to say pass. It's fine.
Okay,
So
no
I'll just
problem.
ask you 5 questions and you keep your answer short and sweet.
Yep.
First one is name a book that has inspired you tremendously. If you're a reader, I know that not everybody enjoys books, but
Oh no, I'm a reader. Uh, so I have a few very quickly. By Marshawn Evans Daniels, Believe Bigger, and her devotional that goes along with it, 100 Days of Believing Bigger. And then the one that I'm just completing now, Woman Evolved by Sarah Jakes Roberts.
oh, I think I've heard of that. Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll have to look those up.
Yep,
What's a tool, a software tool, or an app you can't live without for personal or professional use?
Facebook.
Okay.
I gotta
Is that
touch it.
personal or professional with the vote? That's the first time I've heard that. Name someone you love to have lunch with and why.
So I cheated. Together, it would be my dad and my grandmother, his mom. I really feel their
Sweet.
spirits, especially being back here. I didn't even realize it until a few days ago when we came back. It was my grandmother's birthday. And
Oh,
so, yeah, and so I feel them with me. And so I'd be curious to know how they see things now, on the other side and what they're thinking. So, yeah.
yeah. Wow. That's really
Mhm.
special. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you have a life motto that you live by or favorite quote?
From the same book, with Marshawn Evans Daniels. It was both in the book Believe Bigger and it was in the devotional Day 60, 100 Days of Believing Bigger. She said, when God said, let there be light, he was giving you permission to shine.
Ooh, wow. I've never heard that before either. That's really
That's on
nice.
my
It's,
bathroom mirror.
I like that. Great job, Cassandra. So, do you have any final words for our listeners to take as encouragement or advice for someone who's really trying to make some changes to live life more intentionally?
Yeah. Most definitely, your comfort zone is not a place for growth. It's exactly
Mm,
what it says. It keeps you comfortable, and that's what we're naturally wired to do. And so, for anyone, especially if you find yourself in a situation, you're in a toxic relationship, whether you're living with the person, if it's at work, whatever the situation is, you have to remove yourself from it, and you're able to gather resources to determine whatever that next move is. But the point is, it has to be a move. It has to be a move. Like, you can talk about it till you blue in the face. You can complain about it. You can moan about it. You can journal about it. All of that, it won't change until you put action to it. And so those are my words of advice. You got to move.
mm. Perfect last words. Perfect last words. Well, Cassandra, I want to thank you so much for being on this show. I could laugh with you all day. But I wanted to ask, if you have any links that you want to share. Um, I know you're still working on your business, but if you want to connect with other people and you want to open yourself up for that, anything you share with me, I'll make sure to include it in the show notes.
Oh, awesome. Right now, I do have like my email, so I can at least set up for that. And so that would be EEC@eliteexperienceconsulting.com.
Okay, sure. I'll
Mhm.
link that.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Again, Cassandra, thank you so much for sharing your story. So many gems in there, so much of overcoming challenges. And, now you can say you made it to the other side. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I
Take
appreciate you
care.
and this platform. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of the MILFs Who Pivot podcast. Please take a minute to leave a review and don't forget to follow the show, download the episodes, and share with the other MILFs in your life. Listen in on any of the major platforms, including Apple and Spotify, or watch our videos on YouTube. You can join the community on Facebook and Instagram at MILFs Who Pivot Podcast.